this project with the directorate, and I thank on behalf of the directorate to the team that has been involved in the project. We are approaching the finalization of this project, and this is an important moment when we need to focus on disseminating the results and the knowledge and the know-how gained during this project. So we want at this stage to interact with you and other colleagues on the market, and also with small and medium enterprises, which we invite to use and benefit from the results of this project. There's a lot of information, there was a lot of work, but as you know, the impact of a project can be evaluated by means of the use of the results of the project. So this is what I kindly ask you. Please support us in the following, in the future, to disseminate the results of the project. This was a short introduction on my behalf, and for another half an hour, I will be joining you online. Thank you. And I will pass the floor to our colleague Radu Stănescu to make a presentation about SME's threat landscape. Radu, if you hear us, you have the floor. Good morning. First of all, I want to thank the Directorate for its involvement in an European project that brings Romania on the map of cybersecurity at European and international level. I will talk about the threat landscape, what it means for SMEs. I'm happy that this topic is being discussed because so far everyone thought that only big companies are being targeted by malware and public institutions, but no one was focusing on SMEs. However, we have to take into account that in any healthy economy, it's the SME sector that helps us move things over. So that's why also malware actors, they are focusing increasingly on this economic sector. Based on the NIS2 directive, we observe that on the supplier chain for certain operators of essential services, we find more and more companies that are part of the SMEs. So we need to focus on the threats upon these entities. Malware traffic taking place currently, the target is no longer so important. We can see it at the level of public institutions, hospitals, public institutions, small companies. They are all victims of threats. Motivations are various, whether they are a supply chain for bigger companies, so they act as an entry gate, or if they are the target of ransomware. And as long as they are willing to pay, which I don't advise you to do, then they become interesting as victims, as targets. As in an area of target, we can see IPs, if we look at the slide, from all over the world. But if the source of an attack, let's say it's from the United States, it doesn't mean that the attacker is located in the United States. Currently, we discovered that what we were saying for years, the fact that we need to share information in order to combat this phenomenon is being confirmed, and we need to correlate information from various entities and sectors in order to draw some conclusions at central level related to types and methods of attack and threat for SMEs entities, which can be similar to other state entity attacks. This project, I believe, is a promising start at European level for disseminating information among countries. And I believe it will encourage the decision-making level. And it's a good cooperation between the public and the private sector. And I hope that we can include academia in the process as well. And I will be available for questions in the end. Thank you, Radu. We will have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. We have made some notes. We will resume the activities in the project. The project is called Joint Threat Analysis Network, as you have seen, and there's a technical problem with the pointer. We are going to set up open working party and a cooperation network at European level in the area of cyber attacks, based on collecting, sharing, and managing information related to cyber attacks in the scope of benefiting of the knowledge of all the teams taking part, and in order to raise awareness at level of state and private actors, from critical structure entities to the targets of cyber criminality. The first activity of the project is related to the strategic CTI and technologies that was developed by the Luxembourg experts, which allows to extract information from large data clusters. And we are using the AIL framework for analysis leaks with semantic analysis, and this will allow specialists to eliminate redundancies in irrelevant and repetitive information. The AIL is an open source instrument for collecting and analysis information related to attacks and information leaks. This will improve information leak analysis in order to operationalize CTIs. This covers the methods for semantic analysis in order to better understand information related to possible threats and this will improve the stocking of information, and will also allow for an interface for deleting of information. It will implement the topic of subjects and the analysis of articles related on to topics, will allow for personalized searches. The activity will develop new techniques to annotate and validate information. To this end, we will share these improvements to the XIRT community, and we will use semantic analysis to improve on the broader process of analysis to cover various topics of interest, such as information leak, websites of ransomware groups, and so on and so forth. The integration of leak analysis into JTAN and other communities will allow for further developments. A search engine in order to cooperate and corroborate information for various instances related to ransomware and cyber threats, allowing for the dissemination of this analysis in order to improve the code sources for the AIL analysis. The improvements are part of the basis open source software, and they will be made available through the posts that we will do, and also through the presentations that we will send to you afterwards. The second activity, improved CTI. The point is to allow for all the members of the XIRT and of the consortium have access to relevant information for subscriptions, also sharing of compromise indicators. So this is also taking place in common, and the platform is used at the consortium level, is used universally to this end. The action will focus on data sharing and exchange, which are not readily and appropriately managed by current technologies. So an exchange of information related to threats and malware campaigns, which will allow for the system of malware analysis, the malware database, which is an open source and online database focused on sharing information related to malware attacks. This will be added to other CTI's instruments and tools, offering specific data related to malware campaigns, and it will be extended to the following areas. The integration with the Sparta project 2020, extending the interface with the user, and also the model of data to include methods of data tool for binary information from the Spartan project, and we will share a link. The evolution of the instruments to allow for compatibility with the data flow from the MIS platform, a better view based on a graphic visualization of analysis, and also of relations of the entities in the platform. And these improvements will be available as open source, except for the integration with the internal networks. The N6 aggregation and data sharing systems will be extended. It notifies large-scale incidents. It will provide operational data to the members of the network, and it manages automated data flow for large-scale incidents. The N6 extension will allow for integration with NCERT second version, and N6 will become a shared service, part of the NCERT services, and it will be integrated with the central integration system at the level of the consortium, and it will allow for access to data for enthusiasts across Europe using a unique common access point. Open source, succinct monitoring of spam, database scheme for improving database operation, improvement of blacklists by integrating of bad intent areas on the internet, better access and image related to the entire domain, better ergonomy, visualizations that are improved in the web portal. The users will be able to see the long and short-term tendencies in terms of threats to their own networks, the correlation of CTI fluxes and results shared, and the NSC will create new tools to share and improve the instruments from the project. And we will include notifications from N6 instances and from the XIRTs of Poland and Austria. And based on taxonomy that will be used at merging data from various sources, we will obtain the following: new characteristics in the malware database services, and a new version of the open source software N6, and improved user ability, a new taxonomy, and CTI film which will be integrated and will provide data into a Maltrade platform, which will be presented afterwards by my colleague. Activity number 3, improving and extending the testing structure. The point being of having a platform to test malware for enthusiasts and actors in Europe using Cuckoo and the Dracow sandbox, because many instruments are used on compromised networks. The immediate identification and is very important to understand the opportunistic or targeted attacks. The infrastructure for Cuckoo Sandbox, developed by the Estonian CERT, it's a comprises the malware analysis for any entity of XIRT. The point being of to reproject and implement new and modern technologies in order to have hardware capacity able of daily analysis of thousands of malwares. The software is being updated now, which will allow it to work in a Python 3 method and to be able to work on Windows 10 platform, which will allow for horizontal scalability. And the analysis can be done on various servers, which means that we will need to acquire a lot of servers in order to manage the analysis of many samples of malware. We will provide you with a link in this respect. Extending Dragfoof Sandbox, which is an open source new system for the dynamic analysis of malware, which uses last generation open source tools, and it uses the introspection of virtual machines, which will allow it to analyze malware that avoids normal sandboxes and will allow for an in-depth analysis. And the software will be developed taking into account the monitoring by following the process and which will allow a very fine analysis of the malware behavior, and the documentation will be extended, which will allow for an easier maintenance on part of the users. The Dragfoof Sandbox, elaborated by the Polish CERT, will be completed with the Cuckoo Sandbox from the Estonian colleagues and will allow for various characteristics of the malware behavior at high level, and which will allow for improved analysis of memory. And this leads to an increased capacity of sample analysis of samples of XIRT, which will allow for increased debit and services of data of malware database used by XIRT and enthusiasts and researchers. The Dragfoof Sandbox project will have a new characteristics for a detailed monitoring of malware. Activity number 4. The chart is involved in this activity. The light source sensors will be shared to SMEs and enthusiasts, and the point is to extend the network of indicators and sensors related to the identification of CTIs. We will have a multi-level approach, stopping botnet for the C2 by C2 command and control network and the notifying of targeted victims. The monitoring of botnet and IPs for large-scale campaigns threatening the connectivity to the internet network. Also monitoring of the threats to SMEs that are not able to provide such services. And we are going to update the sinkhole software operated by the Polish CERT and is using them to block the malintended malwares. and the notification will be sent to the affected entities by using the CTIN6 instances that we integrated, and the software is improved to facilitate and maintain the migration to Python 3, which is a web-based management tool, in order to make it easier for maintenance operations. We're going to add an instrument for monitoring and collecting malware infection, and the sinkhole will also be added to the project as well. The external sensors, Polish CERT is collaborating in order to develop large-scale sensors in the project SSSDN in 2020, a network allowing the sharing of quality data and related to tax, and this will be disseminated to all relevant actors, including EU member states. The data of the sensors will be integrated in the project. Now we are going to talk about the sensors of the IMMs for honeypot and data collection. We need sensors that can be used by SMEs and enthusiasts in order to be able to use CTIs for the networks that don't have enough security tools. Such a system will have a very easy and user-friendly interface and will monitor the traffic. And the sensors will correlate the traffic with the flow of the CTIs and N6 and MCQ, and will identify malintended sites and other relevant indicators. And the data will be locally collected, and the notifications will be anonymized and sent to the CERTs in the network, and they will aggregate the data in order to assess the scale of the attack. And the software is based on open source code, and the code is open source. It will used on for detecting threats from integrated feeds, and it will collect information about threats, and the data collected will be shared to you and will allow for valuable information sources in order to assess the hardware and software analysis implementation. We are going to have training sessions online in order to familiarize the participants with the technical and administrative and procedural issues related to the installment of sensors. We are going to sign commodate contracts between the directorate and the beneficiaries in order to have a formal basis for the installment of sensors and to tackle things such as confidentiality, conformity, so on and so forth. And the sensors will be based on hardware components that are pre-configured, such as Raspberry Pi, which will be delivered for free to the participants. And we will use the cloud to share data, and we are going to have a new version of Sinkhole additional sensors for honeypot, part of the ISDN sensor network, technical documentation of the sensors, a code uploaded in a public repository on GitHub and GitLab. The fifth activity, the tool for interconnection with the CTI. We are going to allow for an aggregation of data for multiple sources, which will be very useful for analysts, which will be done through big data sets in order to identify risk factors, improving the graphoscope for investigating bigger data sets, and it will improve also the aggregation of a larger number of information reports. The creation of CTI based on DNS will be extended using the data sets from the TLD superior level. It will offer a risk factor and a methodology for aggregating this risk factor for smaller entities.
Also, the solutions developed by each cybersecurity team within the consortium will be interconnected. We will provide support for various data sources. There will be a web interface not dependent on the pre-installed databases. It will have an easy backend installation, an interface providing flexible filters which facilitate the analysis of large data sets. And a lot of advantages. The target of this interconnecting activity is, of course, to interconnect the information exchange systems within a network in order to ensure key information flow, regardless of the technologies used by the beneficiaries. This will fully improve the activities performed by the members of the CSIRT network. A critical aspect of information exchange is the capacity to integrate tools and have an efficient information exchange. And that will ensure a good interoperability of the tools developed, extended, and used under the project, including API documentation and of the interface accessible per component, implementing interconnection under JTAN, ensuring a constant information flow, testing interconnection in order to build a permanent network of instruments within the Union for JTAN and other relevant sites. Feedback for open source projects if errors or limitations on operability are identified. Dedicated networks for sharing data on MISP for all large volume data flows from automation instruments under the JTAN, which will be tackling a problem identified in the CERT network where the analysts may be overburdened by relevant information. This activity of interconnecting will perform JTAN information exchange as regards the large data volumes, will develop tools under the interconnection component, and that will be validated via tests. So much for the actions under the project. I don't have such a technical background. I just try to summarize the important bits. The public repository for Cuckoo Sandbox, NTLQ, and 6, and so on, which we provide. We'll make available for you. So much from my side. And now for the more technical aspects and explanations as to the hard and software solutions developed under the project, I will give the floor to my colleague Alexandru Alexa, who developed the solution, to tell you more about its features. Hello, I'm Alexandru Alexa. I have worked on this project for the past year. As the director said in the beginning, the workload was huge. It's just I was just the tip of the iceberg, or the one who drew the short stick. As Cezar said earlier, so whom are we addressing? Small enterprises who might are unlikely to allocate a budget for monitoring internet traffic. We thus try to support them so that they may have a solution to identify possible malicious events. The reason we're doing this is, as Cezar said, because it boils down to the question, what is expected of me? If I have a sensor, then my data will be stolen. But no, it's not like that. What we take over from users are flows that we provide. So what we provide under N6 and Q as potentially malicious feeds, those feeds we test to see if they match the traffic of the user and the user's network. So we're not collecting any other data. This only happens in order for us to match an IP or a link from what we transmit and match that against the user's network. There's no question of taking over other kinds of data. The technology used, we largely use the tool, the item tool, in order to facilitate information updates and software updates. Docker, so we are aiming for a smooth distribution, also Bash and so on. In terms of software, we focus on Maltrail, which will also be the interface available to the final users. GitHub, in order to store the depositories and facilitate the automation of the communication. Please allow me to update my presentation. Between sensors and Elasticsearch, Docker Hub, which keeps the updated images, and that's where the upload and download of images, Docker images is made, and Elasticstack, where all the centralization and all the magic we need happens. In terms of hardware, we have a Raspberry Pi Model 4B with 8 GB of RAM. To have an overview of the system, we have the sensors on the left, on the right side of the left, bottom left, you see the sensors which will be with the final users. With those sensors, via Redis, we transfer information to the Elastic Stack, and from there, some of the flows go to GitHub in order to create the new images, and another part to Docker Hub in order to refeed the sensors with new feeds. From a technical standpoint, in terms of Maltrail, when we build the Docker, we keep only a part of the original Maltrail and change aspects of the configuration so that we only keep the sensor-specific part, which is why we call it lightweight, to have as many resources available to it as possible. Customization of the container is done using an environment file. Not sure how well you can read this slide, but that's what the overall solution looks like. No need to come closer to the screen because we will be addressing each component one by one. First of all, we have the feeds that Cesar mentioned, QN6. These come from the Polish and Austrian teams under various forms. They are normalized, parsed, and of course they feed an elastic index. On the other side, we have data from the sensors. As said earlier, we only take the data that matches what we have transmitted from the two feeds. So via Redis, we filter, we enrich, we provide some information in order to enrich the initial sources, and we transmit them further with another elastic index. Here they are, the three images that we obtain. On the one hand, we have the source index, so the external IOCs, and on the other hand, we have an index with information from logs, what has been accessed out of our list. The CTI index is an aggregator, so to speak, that will be shared with the partners. It does not contain any personal information. Well, speaking of the GDPR, that would be a long talk. As we said, we addressed, we reach out to SMEs, and there is no GDPR information in that case. We only take take over the name of the companies. And in terms of individuals, the only thing we transfer is an aggregation of data. So which sensors were involved in the access of a link, or how many sensors noted activity, malicious activity. So we don't send any other information, any confidential information from that elastic zone. In the elastic zone, only the name of the company and an ID will arrive. The question from the audience was not audible. We only keep information regarding the IPs enriched with data sources. So we don't take more information by you, but we enrich that with our information. Inaudible question from the audience.
Da, să iau doar threat actors, să mă gândesc.
Only threat actors.
Cum să zic, nu e complet ruptă, pentru că noi avem un ID.
It's not fully dissociated. We have an ID sensor in order to see where an event happened, because that's the point. We will have a hands-on demo later. Anyway, at the end of this presentation, we will have a hands-on demo of the solution, and that's when we will have the question and answer session, so that we can get a better, more hands-on understanding of the system. So let's see where we left off.
Gata. Ok, unde eram? Aici. Bun, și schema completă în care...
And here's the full diagram, where you see each source and where it, how it goes into the Elasticsearch.
Și acum e partea de ce se întâmplă cu informațiile.
And this is what happens with the collected information. First of all,
pornind de la ceea ce de la feed-uri, se creează
based on feeds,
de IP-uri malicioase,
some malicious IP lists are drafted, and these are loaded in a repository in the GitHub.
Bine, prima dată lucrul ăsta se întâmplă local.
Well, that first happens locally on VPS. These lists are uploaded in the GitHub repository, and then these lists are go into the GitHub, and from there they're taken over by the sensors on a daily basis. Every day, the IOC lists are updated. That's on the one hand, and they are the first 3 boxes in stage 3. On the other hand, these indexes are used for the aggregator, the CTI generator. Then we have the logs on the other side, coming from the end user sensors. And these are used in order to generate IOC lists. And then based on those lists, the malicious IP lists are updated, and we go back to the CTI feeds. Using these logs, we aggregate and further convey to the partners in an aggregated way. So there's no sensor-specific information that reaches the partner. After the update of the IOC list in the GitHub, that is then conveyed to Docker Hub, where it will be taken over every day by the sensors. So it's a circular pathway. Every day, the sensors take over those lists, further convey them. The CTI is drafted, we get the feeds, and there's a further update of the list, and so on.
Din punct de vedere hardware,
In terms of hardware,
avem acest Raspberry Pi.
here's the Raspberry Pi.
El va fi conectat la un switch.
It will be connected to a switch.
Și pe un port se va face mirroring.
One port is for mirroring, as we can see on the left.
Va folosi două porturi din acest
It
switch.
will be using two of the switch's ports.
Va fi și un access point.
There will be an access point also,
Ajuta la
which can
extinderea
help
rețelei sau
in extending the network
efectuarea conexiunilor.
or making connections.
Din punct de vedere software,
And in terms of software,
partea care
because at the end of the day,
interesează cel mai tare ca să nu
that's of the most interest because we're also concerned with the data that we use. So we have 5 containers. The first one, as mentioned in the beginning, is a Maltrail slim image. We only keep the data we need. Then we have the file bit, which somewhat processes the logs and serves them to Redis. Then we have the Redis, which takes over those events and conveys them to the central server. And there's also an exporter
care face efectiv exportarea către
which actually does the export towards the server. And there's a watchtower
actualizarea automată a dockerelor.
that helps in the Docker's automatic update.
Da, și fiecare senzor se va
Each sensor will be authenticated using an API key
serverul central.
in order to connect to the central server.
Avem sesiunea de întrebări și răspunsuri.
So here's the question and answers session.
Totodată o să invităm și pe cei
We will also invite the online
dacă vor să lanseze întrebări.
participants
Eu zic mai întâi să oferim vreo două
to ask questions, but let's provide a couple of minutes for you to prepare the presentation of the solution.
Mă gândeam ca să pui soluția să faci și demo prezentării, că dacă am zis să
For the demo,
de question and answer ca să putem răspunde aplicat la
because I would like the demo to be performed
3 minuțele să
simultaneously with the questions and answers. So let's allow a couple of minutes
dacă vreți să
for my colleague to
cum doriți, da?
prepare the demo, or we can take a 5-minute break, 10 minutes.
Și noi
Let's go on a 10-minute break,
să putem fi gata și preluăm întrebări de la fiecare. Vă mulțumesc
and
pentru
then
înțelegere.
we will be ready to take your questions. Apologies, I will have to leave the call.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Now?
Test 1, 2.
Gata? Bun. Revenim cu prezentările workshop-ului. Urmează o
We
sesiune
resume the workshop
hands-on a soluției
with a demo
Alexandru Alexa.
of the solution made by Alexandru Alexa, my colleague. And we are ready to take your questions, both from the audience in the room as well as from the remote audience. And we would like the questions to be to the point on the topic of today's presentation.
Puteți totodată să puneți întrebările și în scris.
You can also
Coleg de-al meu le va
write your questions
în care acestea sunt
in the chat, and a colleague of mine, will take them on a first-come, first-served basis.
O să simulăm niște accesări pe care le facem la
In the demo, we will simulate some accessing actions.
Aceasta este interfața.
Can you see the Maltail? That is the interface that will be available to the users.
O simulare de trafic.
So let's start a traffic simulation now.
Dacă vrea.
Well, let's see if we can do it.
Așteptăm puțin.
Please bear with me.
Între timp putem să ne uităm pe ce
Meanwhile, we can have a look
am simulat câteva zile tocmai ca să
at this simulation covering several days.
traficul este traficul malițios este surprins în această
The whole malicious traffic is captured by this interface,
printr-un IP.
which the user can use via an IP.
O folosi, va avea nevoie
In order to use it,
user parolă și aici
you will need a username and password,
incidentele care au loc
and then you will get a list of all the incidents in the network.
în funcție de
The incidents are classified by
sunt considerate a fi de către
seriousness,
cele două feed-uri de care povesteam mai devreme.
how serious they are deemed in light of the two feeds that I mentioned earlier.
Dacă utilizatorul are cunoștințe
If the user
cybersecurity, de exemplu, poate să-și facă
has any cybersecurity knowledge, then they can add their own tags
diverse
in order to group the various events together.
de exemplu, poate să le whitelist-uiască, da, să
For example,
raporteze chiar
these can be whitelisted and reported as false positive,
poate să le ascundă, da, le trimite în
or they can be hidden. They can be sent to a whitelist,
ascunde din greșeală
or if these are hidden by mistake,
posibilitatea să
the user can delete them
din whitelist.
from the whitelist.
De exemplu, nu știu, dacă dorim să vedem toate
If, for example, you want to see all the medium risk
pe severitate,
events, you click on seriousness
un filtru
and you will see a filter.
și la fel se poate întâmpla, se poate proceda cu orice altă
And you
informație.
can do the same with any other information displayed.
În cazul în care sunt mai multe trailuri, acestea sunt grupate, da?
Should there be several trails, they are grouped,
Click pe această
and you can view them if you click on that
între timp,
small icon.
apă apărut ceva. Da, vedem că nu e bine. O din cauza... Mai încercăm pe un alt senzor. Dacă sunt întrebări între timp...
We will try another sensor shortly, but meanwhile,
puteți să le adresați.
I'm ready to take your questions. Hello, I am Christy from Cyber Shield. Given that the hardware is shared, or seems to be shared, do you also envisage extending the network so that the users may build their own networks, their own hosts, like FlyRadar, which provides an image, and you can build your own network? This is a public image. Anyone can download it and use it. We will be providing the links.
Da, adică, practic, așa cum spuneam, e pentru entuziaști. Oricine poate să...
Basically, this is for enthusiasts.
Da. Acum...
Un pachet, ideea e că e un pachet cu un UPS, cu un router.
This is a package with an UPS, a router, an SSD, external drive. There are several components of the hardware under this solution. You're asking if you can produce it and enter the network. We will provide an answer subsequently because we've not come across that question before. I don't see any problem with that. We will have to look at the terms. As long as we have 150 packages that we are distributing free of charge, then what would be the point? But that's justified if you want to configure that differently. It's not forbidden, it's totally possible. So for scalability, for the sake of scalability, yes, you can do that. Any other questions? One more for me. You said that IP's address, URLs can be whitelisted. How do you protect yourself if a malicious actor uses their own URLs or IPs? So when you whitelist, is that whitelist transferred to all the certs? No, that's only local. It's only to do with your sensor, the sensor you're working with. It's not sent throughout the network. So each user can customize what they want to see. Some companies forbid YouTube viewing, for example. So what is a blacklist for me might not pose a problem for other companies.
Drapelele de țările respective, nu? Poftim? Să apare drapelul, flags?
What about the flags? I saw some flags. Can you see where the threat is coming from? Yes, you can apply filters. So, I mean, will you see a Russian or Chinese flag, for example? You can't actually see the country, only the IP. Yes, but I did see some flags a little lower. At the bottom of the list, I see the Romanian flag. but not for other items. I don't see the flags. You can filter.
Merge de aici. Nu.
Ok, mulțumesc.
Și dacă scoatem de aici, stai să vedem. Mai dau și pe asta. Da, dar nu se mai vede. Nu mai văd ce. Pentru că e conectat în portul celălalt pe ăla și nu merge, e închis.
Mă scuzați? Nu, s-a vorbit înainte de whitelist.
Excuse me. Since you mentioned whitelist, if some companies enter some IPs in the whitelist, and in the meantime, some of these IPs are infected, will you be seeing the threat? The new threat? You gave the example of access to YouTube, and we know that the IP is attacked. Will there be an automatic change? Yes, it's updated daily. Is it automatic? Is the change of threat automatic? Yes, on a daily basis, the image is updated with new threats. And if that threat persists over the next day, then that will be signaled again. Even if it's in a whitelist? Yes. Thank you.
Se aude?
Da, da.
Liviu Băltoi sunt.
Liviu Băltoi is my name.
De fapt, am mai multe întrebări.
I have several questions, actually.
Feed-urile.
Regarding the feeds, first, are these public?
Chaturile din Polonia.
So I take it that they come from the Polish and Austrian teams. Are these public? That is, can a company check those feeds independently of the censors? The answer is not audible. In Poland, does the civil society have access to those data? The speaker is not using the mic. I'm not aware if they have access to GitLab, GitHub. I know that we integrate them, we parse them, integrate them, and we get some IOCs from that. We receive flows from them, but I don't know if they provide manual access to anyone so that other people can see the N6 feeds. Probably then, yes, otherwise I can't say. Actually, I wanted to know if I, as a small company, without an SOC, without any organizational culture to check these things, how could that help me? Let's say I install the sensor. Something is identified, I see that, and what can I do further? Well, it depends. We will have a further session to explain what you can do. In fact, we will have 2 training sessions to tell you what you can do in such situations if you are infected. In order to avoid being infected, first of all, there has to be someone who is somewhat knowledgeable about analyzing these IOCs that you receive.
Încă una și gata. Încă una și mă duc, cum spune reclama. Traficul de, nu știu, VPN, proxy, dacă îl trec, cum facem să
The VPN proxy flow, how do I do it to reach the sensor? Yes, I discussed with the colleague if it is via VPN, there is the possibility that some IPs might escape.
Ar mai fi o situație ipotetică, dar și
Another hypothetical but also practical situation
accesul la senzor sau la
when the access to the sensor or to the interface is being compromised. And I am an attacker, and
de phishing este
I'm looking if my phishing
blacklist.
domain is listed in the blacklist. And if not, I know that I can launch my attack campaign in the next 24 hours. How is the access being done to the platform? I understand that based on IP, but if the IP of a company is compromised, there are some credentials and there is a token that we have, and the sensor can be taken out of the list if there is no traffic in that area.
Păi traficul e din zona aia, că vine tot de pe IP-ul.
But the traffic is from that area. It comes from the same IP. No, I mean,
Da, nu știu.
E bine de luat în calcul.
I don't know. Yes, it's something that we need to take into account. I was talking to another colleague. We are going to try to give this to persons that are trained in pen testing in order to subject the entire system to tests. Because as I was saying, the solution was developed, but we need to test it. So then we need some enthusiasts in order to see how we can react to certain incidents. Nothing is impenetrable.
Am o întrebare despre cât costă.
Another question related to the implementation cost and when will it be put into sales? What will be the monthly cost for or the annual cost for a company? Cezar can answer this question. The cost is basically the invoice for the energy, the number of watts. So that would be basically 30 watts. So there is no cost. This is the service is provided for free. If a company wants to purchase your system, okay, now I know that for testing, it's for free. Now they are for free for you to use. But how many do you provide now? Normally, a kit would cost 500 euros. If it was for you to redo the same solution. You have 150 kits now, but there are thousands of companies. But on the long term, maybe the Romanian companies might be interested. That was the question. The same for you will probably need a subscription. currently, because it's a European funded project, it's for free. But yes, I understand. But for any company afterwards, what would be the cost? This is not a very advanced solution. It's a pilot tested solution. It offers IOCs to companies. You cannot update the blacklist based on this solution, but you will be able to send notifications to another company, and you will be notified in advance that there is suspicious behavior in your network. During these projects, we create solutions to be tested. It's too early to say what the solutions will look like in time. We need enthusiasts to play with this, and based on the reports, we will improve the solutions, the feeds, the repositories. Thank you. It seems useful, and I think it would be useful for many companies in Romania. Yes, of course. It's a more simple and accessible solution which can be applied by SMEs that don't have such a tool. It works similarly to an antivirus. We have developed components. There is a logical pattern, and we considered that we could acquire these equipments and we can disseminate them. If we were able to collect several types of data, we could intervene as SOC. Now, currently, it is a solution to be tested, and if the enthusiasts will play with it, and then in the future we could do updates to it. We have questions from the online. The sensor does interfere with already installed systems. No, it does not interfere. It can help to improve the security. Why Raspberry Pi? Because it's not very performant. The image, can it roll on hardware x86 or VM? This is what we try to do. I've been working these days with a colleague of mine to transfer it on VM in order to increase its utility. Currently, it's only available on Raspberry Pi. In order to transfer it on a VM, you need the hardware, and this is only a kit now. It will be also available for Intel. Another question. Mirroring is being done on the internal interface of a router. Do you need more interfaces? Do you need more sensors for more interfaces? No. You only need one sensor. Are there customizable alerts to be and notifications to be sent by email? No, I don't know what you refer to. No, it's what you see on the MAL trailer. There are no other notifications or other IOCs via email.
Ideea e că soluția mai departe poate fi scalată.
The solution can be scaled.
În ideea scalării acestei soluții.
There can be other projects in order to scale the solution. We are testing the impact and its usability presently.
Oportunități de și dorința
If opportunity would arise in the future to scale it up, then of course we could use other funds to achieve this.
Între timp a pornit și
Meanwhile,
în momentul ăsta se
it
actualizează
has started.
lista, se
Now
poate
the list is being updated. You can set an automatic refresh at a certain
de exemplu, la 30 de secunde,
time
se
frame.
actualizează
Now it's 30 seconds.
traficul. Da.
And so basically the traffic is being updated.
Interfața web e pe hardware, e pe Raspberry.
The interface is on Raspberry.
Și cum spuneam mai devreme, putem pune diverse filtre pe IP-uri, pe
We can use filters on IPs, on target IP or on the source IP, depending on what we want to observe.
tagurile, se pot adăuga.
We can add tags. As I mentioned earlier, everyone can add their own tags. They can filter their events.
O întrebare. Spuneați că nu se trimit notificări de...
A question. You mentioned that no notifications will be sent by email. No other IOCs will be submitted.
Prevede și încercarea unui
The solution also takes into account the implementation of a notification system, a warning system, when the activity is being observed based on the IOC. There is in the future a possibility to alert the user. You need to pay someone especially for that.
Altă întrebare din online pentru un IMM care are un client multinațional.
Another question from the online for a SME client with a multinational client which is pressed for periodical cybersecurity audits without having a specialist employed. What are the benefits? Is it how does it score in terms of audit? Can it be invoked in a relations with the DNSC? No, there is no relation to this issue. The obligativity for regular audits is not linked to having this system, but according to the law, SMEs are not compelled to do regular audits because they are not part of NIS. So big companies will not access this solution. It's for monitoring.
Am și o întrebare. Cred că multe din întrebările pe care le-am văzut inclusiv în online și cred că
I think many of the questions that I saw online, I think that people would like to know concretely how can someone notify DNSC in relation to a problem occurring. Can it use automatically the platform? Yes, there is the opportunity by monitoring the network that you might need a more competent solution. So he or she needs to notify DNSC by email. So people should not understand that this tool will work as such. This is what I want to underline. Yes, you are right.
Altă întrebare din online. Putem interveni și
Another question from online.
PI, eventual pentru a
Can we modify the source code for PI?
Cum spuneam,
As I mentioned, related to the code on Raspberry Pi, related to the sensor, the code is public. It's part of a public repository.
Nu știu dacă se găsesc îmbunătățiri care pot fi aduse codului.
If there are improvements to the code, those can be made public as well.
Dacă e o chestie care poate ajuta, după cum
If this is helpful. As I mentioned earlier to the colleagues that asked me, related to the testing component, if we find an improvement that we can make, of course, this would be useful.
O altă întrebare, rugăm să...
Another question, please detail us the procedure to obtain such a sensor. You can access it via a link that we will send so that we can have a centralized link, and then we will send you by email a commodate contract that you will sign. Now we are procuring the sensors, and we will have them in about 30 days, and based on your demands, we will send them to the beneficiaries. Who will install the sensors in the networks that adopt them? We want a plug-and-play system. We will install everything that is needed. I brought the sensor here. If you want to see the solution, it is there. It's in the back due to the length of the cable. We have brought the sensor. We have put it in the network, and that's all. They are pre-configured, and they can be used as is.
Ele vin cu preconfigurate, instalarea lor e simplă și totodată...
They are easy to be installed because they are pre-configured, and when we will distribute them, we are going to have 2 training sessions related to the installment procedure in order to better understand how to search for IOCs and other malintended behaviors, and based on what we can observe and on other advices related to prevention, we will discuss them in those training sessions. What will happen if the equipment is used for other purposes? These kits are distributed to be used only in the scope of the project. This is in the contract. The destination cannot be changed in terms of usage. But if I do streaming on Netflix, for example, no, you cannot use it for streaming. This would breach the contract. And in that case, the sensor needs to be given back, returned. Yes, thank you.
Absolut, da. Se va monitoriza
The
activitatea și
monitoring, the activity would be monitored online. So you will periodically monitor the activity, the online activity of the sensors.
A mai venit o întrebare.
Another question. Once acquired and insert in the network, the heat has to be 100% online every day, every minute, because sometimes it might get temporarily deconnected. Of course, there might be such opportunities, and when the sensor would be deactivated, but the idea is to be installed because the permanent use will be helpful for the operator in order to monitor the data flow.
Puteți pune la dispoziție draftul contractului de comodat?
Can you show us the draft model of the contract? Yes, after the event, we will share the draft contract to all participants. And certain modifications to the contract can be done in order to accommodate your activity. We will try to be flexible.
Bun. Având în vedere că ne-am apropiat de ora 12 și fiind
taking into account that we have reached the end of our meeting, if there aren't any other questions, we thank you for participation. We will receive other questions by email as well, and we'll try to answer them. Thank you for taking part and for the questions. They were quite challenging. We will try to do as much as possible to answer. Thank you for taking part, and we will send the link in order for you to order the sensor if you want. Thank you.